Okay, we have two really interesting guests to introduce you to. They're from News 2A, and if you're not following News 2A, check them out. We're going to talk to co-founders Grant Kilshevsky and Sean Abramson from News 2A. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're
Good to be
doing
with you.
great.
Thanks for having us.
Good, good, good. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining the show. Big thanks to our mutual friend, John Petrolino, the Penn Patriot. Love that guy. He's the absolute best. And he introduced us to you guys, or put us together. He brokered that deal. So big shout out to John Petrolino. You guys work with him. Does he write for News 2A, or what's your relationship with John?
Yep. Yeah, John was actually our very first supporter. And he was the first person to come out of the woodwork and say, "Hey, do you guys want me to write a piece for you?" And then we just kind of became friends, and he kept writing pieces for us. And to this day, we're good friends. And
That's
you know,
awesome.
we just love to push each other.
He's the best. Absolutely love that guy. Had him on the show many times, and I'm so glad that he introduced us to you guys. So talk about the start. When did you guys start? Why did you guys start? And what are you looking to accomplish?
Yep. So
Sean,
we
go
started
ahead.
in. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, we didn't. Excuse me. We didn't like pre-rehearse it. So, yeah, back
It's all
back in
right.
the aftermath of the Bruin ruling, the state wanted to basically invalidate our carry permits. So they said, okay, we're going to issue carry permits, much like they're doing in California.
Yeah.
We're going to issue carry permits, but we're going to change what it means and just make them worthless.
This is the
And
state of
so
New
Grant and
Jersey
I,
you're talking about. When you say the state, you're talking about New Jersey did this.
yes, sorry, yes, New Jersey. Excuse me. So we started spending some time down in Trenton in the legislature, and just the sheer disdain with which they treat all the public testimony, all common sense, everything was just it was infuriating. And so one day I was just like, "Hey, Grant, you're into guns. I've got this idea. Should we give it a try?" And basically, that's how it was born. He said yes, and we just write articles constantly, and we've stuck with it for the last two and a half years.
That's awesome. Congratulations, you guys. You guys are doing a great job. And yeah, New Jersey. And that's funny. What do we have? 50 states. I think if you include Canada, it's 51, right? But for now, it's 50 states, and there's only 6 or 7 or so that are vehemently anti-Second Amendment, and it's California is kind of the most known for being crazy, but we're not alone anymore. There's
Yeah.
California, and Hawaii's not good, and Washington and Oregon are not good, but New Jersey is definitely. You
Mm-hmm.
guys are jockeying for first place when it comes to being anti-Second Amendment. I mean, New Jersey's horrible. I've heard some true horror stories coming out of New Jersey. People, I remember one lady took a wrong turn and went over a bridge and ended up in New Jersey. And even though she was carrying a
Yep.
licensed firearm that was totally legal, and she
Mm-hmm.
was doing everything, on the up and up, and she still got busted for it. And I think there was another story out of New Jersey where a guy was on a flight. He had a layover
Yeah.
in New Jersey, and he was carrying completely and totally legally, in his luggage, and he got busted for that. It's horrible. I mean, California, like I said, you guys are jockeying for number one when it comes to Second Amendment. What do you guys think about all that? Why is New Jersey so vehemently anti-gun?
So New Jersey's always been anti-gun, just because it's had a heavy Democrat control for quite a while. But New Jersey is just the template. Look, these other states you mentioned, they're following the same template, right? California, Illinois, New York, and it was all a post-Bruin response. They were like children kicking and screaming. Well, we'll give you a permit, and a permit to carry nowhere. And so News 2A was born based off the confusion that comes out of states like New Jersey and California. One day you're a law-abiding citizen, the next day you're a felon, because they're constantly changing the rules, or as the court case progresses and you have an injunction or something like that, it changes the law. So we were born out of necessity because people were looking for reliable sources to try to understand how the changing laws impact them, and who has time to read a 64-page court document Very few people are lawyers. So what we do and what we excel at is taking complex legal information and distilling it into layman's terms. And although we started in New Jersey, we now cover national Second Amendment news. We've reported on numerous things developing in California there, which are in some ways following the template of New Jersey, and in other ways you're setting your own standards with some pretty crazy anti-gun laws.
Yeah. It is crazy. Now, okay, so you guys have something real over here in California. Dakota and I got to put up with SB2, which exactly like you're describing. In the wake of Bruin, the legislature out here in California said, okay, fine. If we have to issue, then we won't be able to carry anywhere. And they listed, what was it, like 20 different areas or something
sensitive
like that?
places, like parking lots were included of some businesses and, crazy things. You're like, how could this ever be considered a sensitive place?
Yeah, it's basically everywhere outside of your home. I mean, really, truly. They tried to describe every possible place you could go outside of your home that was now considered a place where you couldn't carry. So talk about, is it similar? Have you looked at SB2 compared to New Jersey's law, or talk a little bit about New Jersey's law and what they did? And it sounds like you guys are making some progress over there.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say we're making progress, but it's been, the last count was 580 some days, I believe. Sean, correct me if I have the number wrong, since oral arguments in the combined Siegel-Coons v. Platkin case, which was our New Jersey carry killer bill. 580 some days since oral arguments just in the preliminary injunction. That has to be some kind of record. So basically, we challenged the law. There was a preliminary injunction. It allowed us to carry in some places, not others, which are still under being contested. But I mean, that's a massive amount of time to not have any development. And we're talking to some inside sources who are suggesting that there's going to be a challenge to that delay.
A challenge to the actual delay. And I got to tell you, man, that's the issue. Gun Owners Radio, we work tightly with a couple of different gun organizations, San Diego County Gun Owners and Orange County Gun Owners, Inland Empire Gun Owners. And their whole thing is, activism, getting people elected. Lawsuits are extremely important, and we're in a bunch of lawsuits here in California. But man, people think that lawsuits are a better solution than they are. Maybe is the best way to put it. Lawsuits are first off a crapshoot. You may or may not win. I mean, really, truly. Even in the best case scenario, you may not win on some technicality or, whatever. The judge is having a bad day, your attorney's having a bad day. So they're not as guaranteed maybe as people think that they are. But the other thing is, they're expensive and take a ton of time. They take a ton of time. People come to me all the time and say, hey, why don't we file a lawsuit for XYZ issue? And I say, okay, great. I need $500,000 in 10 years.
Right.
So give me both of those and we'll file every lawsuit you've ever wanted, for each.
Wouldn't it, and the entire time that you're in a lawsuit, you're basically, your rights are already being infringed, right? So wouldn't it be better to stop these bills before they became law?
Yeah, it is. I mean, but I mean, they're both necessary. They're both important. The cool thing about a lawsuit is once you win, you win. Whereas getting people elected, you got to win every 2 years. But it does take a really long time. So, how much do you know about the possible challenge to the amount of time it's taking?
We don't know much at all. It's just an inside tip, and there's really not much to report on it yet. I don't think anything's been filed.
Okay, and I was looking. You guys, it sounds like you guys are going to get a new author, a new contributor to your site too. Do you want to talk about that, or is it too early to talk about?
So we were recently honored to publish a first piece from Mark Smith of the Four Boxes Diner.
Nice.
We don't know. I mean, it was great because we depend on his legal analysis for so much of what we do.
Yeah.
And he's so knowledgeable and an expert. And so we don't know exactly if he's going to write more for us or not. We hope so, but most of the work that's done for our site, it's pro bono. So we have to depend on the goodness of, people in the Second Amendment community to donate their time basically. So, but it was great. We're so happy to to feature a Mark Smith piece, and all we had to do was ask.
Yeah, he's the best. And his debut article was Congress should remove suppressors from the NFA, which is an important and hot topic right now. And he's great. I mean, the guy, he's kind of the best of both. You know, you get people that are really highly educated. They know every in and out, every nut and bolt when it comes to legalities, lawsuits, whatever, you know, gun issues. And then you know people who are, or you have people that are really they're just really good at explaining it. You know, they have a lot of personality. He's like the best of both worlds. You know, he's extremely educated. He's very good at presenting his case.
And you know what's great about that article is you were talking about this a moment ago, is activism and getting people engaged, right?
Yeah.
That article, I feel, can be used to help reach out to legislators and educate them about why we want to do this. So many legislators have no knowledge of the Second Amendment, very little knowledge of firearms, very little familiarity. Their talking points and their knowledge comes from Democrat talking points and what they see in the movies in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And so we are encouraging people to take that, push it out, send it to their legislators, and he explains in simple bullet point terms why it's reasonable and effective and a smart thing to do to deregulate suppressors, and why it's not a dangerous thing.
Well, congratulations on getting him to write on your platform. I think that's awesome. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you. I've only known about Mark for less than a year. When was GRPC here? Was that last September?
Yeah, September.
So I went to GRPC, right?
Yeah.
I went to GRPC. It was here in San Diego, and it was wonderful, and it was my first one. And Friday was like media day, or I forget what they call it.
AmCon.
Yeah, AmCon, which was really very cool. And they gave him a big speech on the main day, but they gave him like 15 minutes on Friday. And I'm going, who's this guy? Like this was he was like the best 15 minutes of the whole weekend. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know who he was until September. Yeah. And I was blown away. I went up and talked to him afterward. He made this really, really great point when he was talking, Mark Smith. He said, the right or Republicans focus on all these different issues, and they completely ignore the fact that the only issue that they seem to embrace, where they've actually made inroads, where they've actually had success, is Second Amendment, and they're afraid to talk about it. If you look at all their other hot button issues, they have these major losses. And things are getting a little better now because Trump was elected and the administration is actually moving some things forward. But he made the point that they should be concentrating on where they're winning, which is the Second Amendment, and they're just not talking about it enough. Now, again, a lot of this has changed since September. I mean, the guys, I guess he's a problem. I guess they were there. I guess the Trump administration heard Mark's speech and said, hey, we better do this. But I thought, oh, my God, it was such a good point, but it was so well phrased that it made all the difference. And it was kind of something like it was one of those deals where everybody kind of knows that, but the way he phrased it and explained it and presented it kind of made it like a no-brainer. Like, oh yeah, this guy's right. They totally nailed it. So that's awesome that he contributed to your platform there.
Yeah, Mark's a great communicator, and with regard to some of those Second Amendment wins, we've been tracking those. I know this is something we talked about before the show, the new Justice Department under Pam Bondi. And so we created what we just call colloquially the Pam Bondi action tracker. But basically it's everything that the Justice Department under Pam Bondi has done with regard to the Second Amendment. It's all in one timeline anybody can use at news2a.com, and it's a simple thumbs up or thumbs down on the action and a quick analysis of how we view it fitting into those things. But that's something Sean did a really, really good job of creating and making easy to use.
And there's even a timeline, right? I'm looking at a timeline like on this day.
So if you go to the upper left-hand menu, Second Amendment News, there's a drop-down.
Gotcha. That's amazing.
Pam Bondi action tracker right there in the lower left.
Now, did you do this? I'm still skeptical of Pam Bondi. I was skeptical back in the day when she was nominated, when they brought her on board with the Trump administration. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm still skeptical. There, the DOJ in general has definitely said a lot of the right things. They've done many of the right things. I'm still skeptical of her. I feel like she's an ally because everyone around her is an ally, and she's kind of.
Maybe it's not her own personally held belief system, but it's what she's being asked to do, so she's doing it, kind of thing.
I think if there were five people around her were different, then our experience with Trump's DOJ and the Second Amendment would be different. And you know what I mean? It's not her. It's like 5 people around her. I'm making that number up, but you know what I mean? She's surrounded by people that are going, hey, we got to concentrate on the Second Amendment. But if it were just left up to her, I don't know if we'd have the success we have. Is that skepticism I'm not alone. I'm not the only guy. Is that where this came from, or what was the thought behind the Pam Bondi tracker?
Yeah, I mean that is kind of where it came from, because there was a lot of pushback when she was proposed to potentially be the Attorney General. There was a lot of rumbling online and a lot of people calling her out for all of the things that she's done in the past. So Grant and I, we've been just keeping a close eye on her, and then we're just like, gee, everybody keeps talking about her. And nobody's maintaining an actual list of all the things that are happening under her leadership. So this might be interesting and useful for people. And we just came with the idea and put it up. And it's one of the most visited places on the site.
How hard is it to be? I mean, you guys are, for all intents and purposes, you're journalists, but you have a clearly clearly stated bias, and how do you work with that? You know what I mean? Like you're a journalist with a bias. So how does that bias work into journalism? How do you keep it unbiased when you have a clear bias? You know what I mean?
That's a really good question, and I'm gonna throw it to Sean in a second here, because it's actually a discussion we've had. Twitter, first of all, has become an awesome platform for journalists, right? It's given us a place to live, a place to promote and push our content. And without Twitter and the free speech that Elon Musk has opened up there, who knows if we even have a platform. So we're balancing objectivity with in defense of our constitutional rights as well, both First Amendment and Second Amendment. And so we just try to make a distinction between our reporting when it comes to opinion and when it comes to objective fact-based articles. And of course, you're going to read an article and see that have a bent towards the Second Amendment, but our impetus there is to make sure we are getting the facts absolutely 100% correct. But I know Sean also has a perspective on it too.
Well, I mean, I think that we're on the side of right, but just something funny that happened early on in the days of News 2A was, I don't remember what article we were publishing or working on, but Grant came to me and he's like, Sean, we're supposed to be unbiased journalists. I'm like, no, we're biased. We are for gun rights. And of course, he's always known we're for gun rights. I don't want that to come out the wrong way, but but he wanted to be more objective. But I was like, no, I mean, no, there is barely any objective news. And even when there is, people don't believe it. Everybody is just completely polarized to one side or the other. But the fact is, the stuff that we publish is on the side of right. We follow the Constitution. We follow the law, we follow court precedent, and that stuff we do very objectively. But when we write our articles, obviously our goal is to promote the Second Amendment. So we do have a bias, but it is an objective interpretation of the law, if that makes any sense.
It is. And Sean, thank you for keeping Grant pro 2A. I'm glad you were there to for that safety net. I think there's an argument to be made that what you guys do and what I've seen of News 2A is the only reason there is a bias is because an anti-bias, such an extreme anti-bias has been created over the last 30, 40 years. So in other words, before this extremism, this anti-gun extremism really took hold and created its own little universe, you guys weren't biased. You were just normal. You know, you were
Right.
just right down the center saying, hey, this is the reality of life, you know, but because this anti-gun delusion has been created and they come up with these weird, ridiculous stances against reality, the Second Amendment, now all of a sudden it appears that you guys to be more biased than you really truly are. Am I in my own little bubble, and am I the delusional one, or do I have a point there? Tell me I have a point there. Make me feel good.
Isn't it? No, you have a point. Isn't it weird though that we're all collectively in this position where supporting our constitutional rights makes us biased? I mean, how do you wrap your head around that? I guess if that makes me biased, then sure, I'm biased. But take any other civil liberty, take the Fourth Amendment or something. If I was writing in support of that civil liberty, would I also be biased? I think the left has, as they've done with many other political things, they've pushed it so far and so extremely to one side that we now appear to be radical when we haven't moved at all.
Has there been anything that you guys have initiated or reported on or published that you believed in, but it was not well received by the Second Amendment community? In other words, maybe it was kind of, tough love, or hey, you got to take your medicine here. We were wrong on this or that. Is there anything that's been, you've gotten some major pushback or has been contrary to maybe what the pro-Second Amendment community has thought to be mainstream?
Sean's probably reading my mind on this right now. I'll let him take it.
Kyle Arena.
Say again?
Is it Kyle Arena?
Well, there's been a couple things, and we could probably pivot to that one too. I was thinking NRA, which I know you had wanted to talk about, Mark. But
let's get into NRA.
That's been juicy stuff. We like it.
Let's do that.
But Sean also has a really good point. There is a story there that I'll let him speak to really quickly.
Well, let's start with NRA.
Yeah,
where did you guys fall on NRA, or what did you guys report with NRA?
Sean, go ahead.
No, Grant, take that one.
All right. So
That's
I
how
think
controversial it was.
Yeah, neither of them want to say anything.
All right, so here's what happened. We, in this, having the privilege of having this platform, we get to talk to a lot of people, right? And we were just receiving input from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people we talked to, thousands collectively if you count skimming the forums and Reddit and going to the gun range. And so we were just reflecting what we were hearing from people about the NRA. This is prior to the recent elections and NRA 2.0, as you know. Mm-hmm. And the criticisms were, we thought, well warranted. People were sort of frustrated with an organization that was hadn't evolved, didn't appear to be as active in lawsuits. Maybe you had some issues with finances and credibility, all the things you know. And so we published some of those things as objectively as possible. We got some pushback from within the community. And frankly, I feel we've been vindicated. I mean, we just had an awesome interview with Jeff Knox and one before that with John Comerford, who basically have come out and said, yeah, we realize the NRA had a reputation problem and we're working on it. And that's why there's reform candidates. That's why they exist. And that's why NRA 2.0 is here. So it took a year, but from our perspective anyway, that reporting was vindicated. Have you seen something different on your side?
No, not at all. So just to be clear, so you guys said, hey, NRA is doing some questionable things. There's some criticism to be, heaped onto the NRA. I don't know if heaped is a word. Let's go with it. But there's some NRAs deserve some criticism, and you guys said, hey, here's some criticism that's being said about NRA. And the general population, the 2A population, pushed back against that and said, hey, stop criticizing the NRA?
There were some specific influential people who didn't receive that well and reached out to us through some back channels. And I think most of the general population probably agreed with us, but on the inside, we got some pushback.
Let me tell you something, and this is going to, I don't know how it's going to sound, but in my time doing this, if you get pushback from very specific influential people, triple down. That's how you know you're doing something right. When when very specific influential people back channel you and tell you, gee, golly gosh, that might not be a great idea. That's how you know it's a great idea. And you triple down on it and you shove it right in their fucking face. That's what you do. That's exactly. So sounds like what you
You've got the experience to speak to that. Well received. We'll keep that in mind going forward. Thank you.
So, okay. So NRA, I got to tell you, I was skeptical when things started coming out. I remember we interviewed Rob Pincus, and I'm like, Rob, what are you doing? You know, with the NRA, knock it off. You know, how is this productive? And we didn't get, he pushed back and he made some great points, and then some other people were like, yeah, this is looking bad. And then I remember when Chris Cox left, I was like, okay, this is something real is going on here, and I kind of shut up. And NRA has directly attacked me personally, like Michael Schwartz in San Diego. And so and even then I was like, hey, we should still, defend them against, but I was wrong. Hat in hand, I was wrong. I am sorry. Forgive me for being wrong. There clearly were some issues that needed to get cleaned up. Now, that being said, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a glass is half full guy, but I love NRA 2.0. And I felt like I was kind of skeptical of that. And I've talked to Doug Hamlin a lot. I've talked to a lot of the new board members. Gun Owners Radio endorsed a lot of the new board members and said, hey, vote for these guys. So I'm pretty excited about NRA 2.0, but I also have a track record of being wrong about NRA. So I don't know. What do you guys have thoughts on what's happened and what's going on and things going forward?
I mean, from what we can tell, and I've met quite a few people that are with the NRA, board members, John Comerford, and a bunch of others, and they just seem really sincere about turning over a new leaf, owning the past, and regaining the trust of people that are current members, like myself. I'm a life member, or those who chose to leave, because it's a hard sell to bring some of them back. And so the word needs to get out that they're doing things different. They're going to work with other groups that are also bringing lawsuits. So that's actually really huge to see.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just sincerely seems like they've turned a new leaf. They've also been silently behind a lot of the cases that have been out there as well. Their name hasn't necessarily been on the docket, but they may have financed it or been involved in other ways. So,
well, if there's so much to talk about, let's touch on. You guys brought up Kyle Arena. Touch on that. Give us a little. Bring us up to date on that. The sad case of Kyle Arena.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I'm excited to hear
that
your
was
thoughts.
That was a controversial one. So there was this guy that, I don't know him. I don't think Grant knows him, but a lot of people in North Jersey from all the different gun groups, they know him. And he would go on to, Facebook and post a lot of controversial stuff. And some person anonymously filed, it was a red flag, an anonymous red flag report via email. We don't even know who the person is. They never revealed their identity. And so the police just went into his house. They seized all of those firearms. He was villainized in the media, and turned out that all of his firearms, I believe they were all Jersey legal, but in the media, they're just like assault weapons and they're illegal and this, that, and the other thing. I think he did have some high cap mags. Should do air quotes with that, high cap standard capacity mags. And so we put out this article written by Joe Laporto, and it basically said, okay, this guy was basically a jackass, but he still had the right to post the things that he was posting. And so we put this article out, and it brought an absolute ton of traffic, probably our most read article of all time. And depending on where we would post the article up, some people would be like, gee, the guy seems like a jackass, but it's his right to do these postings. And then others would just crucify us. And these are people who claim to be strong 2A supporters. They're coming out and saying, I support red flag laws, and this guy gets what he deserves. So it was just very controversial because it was a strong sentiment on one side or the other. The guy's either, a piece of, what, or, he had the right and maybe he shouldn't do these things, but he doesn't deserve to be red flagged over it.
What can you think of I'm putting you on the spot. You don't have material in front of you, but can you think of an example? Like what are some of his most offensive Facebook posts that would, necessitate a gun violence restraining order? Like what's like the worst the guy posted?
So if you can put that article back up and just scroll down a little bit, there's a picture in there
Yeah.
of a hand. You can't even identify that it's him. The person said that he's pointing that gun at the car. I guess if you look at the photo, you could think maybe it does, but if you actually look, it's way off to the side. He was just basically, from what I could tell, he was basically trying to say, here's my carry piece. He wasn't probably pointing it at the car. That would be incredibly stupid and dangerous. But just based on that, there's no face, there's no identifying marks. It's just a firearm and a hand. And that was enough to get him red flagged.
That's ridiculous. I mean, dumb picture.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a dumb picture.
For sure.
I think we can all agree. There were some other things too. I think there was a photo, which maybe they've said is photoshopped, I don't know, but of him holding a gun with a red dot optic on it and pointing it at his girlfriend, like the red dots on her forehead.
Yes.
But again, do we think that this was smart behavior? No. But do we know for sure that it wasn't Photoshop? Do we know for sure that it's actually, a crime? I don't know. I don't know if you could say that that's a crime.
If his girlfriend filed the gun violence restraining order and said, this picture is now evidence,
Right.
but yeah, I agree. There's not this. Some stranger is clearly just, this was, and this is one of the big problems of gun violence restraining orders. Is this person was not using it because they felt like something bad or unsafe or illegal was happening. There was no absence of law. Therefore, this gun violence restraining order acted as a safety net to prevent a, mass shooting.
Right. Like,
It
I don't
wasn't
think
that.
there's any evidence that he was going to go kill people, right? Like, I don't think there was any evidence of like a crime that was being planned or in progress or anything like that. I do think kind of my personal opinion on this is like, well, people like this are not benefiting the Second Amendment community.
Right.
They're not doing
No.
anything to help. It makes us look bad as a whole, right?
You're talking about the guy that posted the picture.
Yeah, Kyle Arena himself, like he did a lot of things in the Second Amendment community. I know he was a moderator on some Facebook groups and different things like that. But this type of attention is not the kind of attention we want as a community, right? So it
Correct.
definitely was a hot topic because it made us all look bad. And then if you were on the side of I'm against red flag laws, it made you look like you were in support of Kyle Arena, but you could be against red flag laws and also think the guy's dumb,
Yeah, none of this warrants a red flag. None of this is a figurative red flag. So therefore, a gun violence restraining order shouldn't have happened. If he's pointing a gun at somebody, that's already illegal. So why not just use the law? But the person, none of that was actually happening, right? He was just taking pictures that were.
And if I remember
sporty.
correctly, the red flag report was filed like a year or year and a half after the picture was actually posted online.
Wow, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
San Diego is a hotbed of gun violence restraining orders too. 1/3 of the gun violence restraining orders issued in California. Is it 1/3 or is it higher than that? I think it's something like 1/3 of the gun violence restraining orders issued in California are issued in San Diego County, and we are not 1/3 of the state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
One of the worst I heard was a guy posted a meme on Facebook early morning on Valentine's Day that said Valentine's Day, best massacre ever. Like this dark humor referencing, the shootout in the 30s, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Now, the unfortunate thing is that was the Valentine's Day that the school shooting happened. Was that Uvalde? Is that what it was on that day?
Yeah, that might have been Uvalde.
So his coworkers already didn't like him. And so they, after the fact, after this horrible massacre happened, they reported him, for posting this meme, and it resulted in a government restraining order. He had to go to court. He lost his job, thousands of dollars. It was really, really horrible.
It was Parkland.
Parkland.
It was the Stoneman Douglas one.
So Parkland happened on like 4 or 5 hours after he posted this meme. I'm pretty sure his meme had nothing to do with that horrific, activity that horrific shooting that happened. But wow, that's interesting. So definitely a split then. Some people were supportive, and some people weren't. But everybody had a strong opinion, huh? How do you feel about those? It seems like, in a lot of ways, those types of discussions and those types of articles, despite the criticism that you may have received, that seems like that's kind of the point, right? Of putting material out there.
One of the nice things about it is it generated discussion. So below our articles, there's an opportunity for people to comment, and it's almost like a discussion thread. And you just saw lots of ideas being thrown back and forth. I don't know how many minds are changed, but there's definitely compelling arguments on each side. And it just points to the fact that in this right that we have carries a lot of gravity and weight with it. And there's always going to be people doing stupid things like you just mentioned. And yet that doesn't mean that they should be punished by laws that are inherently unconstitutional and lack due process. And so bringing light to states like New Jersey and California for these unconstitutional laws will generate the discussions the public needs to have. And then look at Wyoming. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago they basically outlawed red flag laws. So maybe these discussions are having some kind of impact.
I hope so. I got to tell you, I really think these gun violence restraining orders, these red flag laws are one of the worst. I don't think people realize just how bad they are and how bad they're going to get. It's truly one of the biggest threats to our Second Amendment. Okay, last thing I wanted to talk to you guys. There's so much to talk to you guys about. We could seriously talk forever on a lot of these things, but I want to make sure people get a real good taste of you guys and subscribe and check you guys out. But the last question I wanted to ask you about was the infringement report, which I love. It's essentially a name and shame of police departments that take longer than they should to issue carry permits, right? Is that the idea?
Yep.
Yeah, any kind of infringement. Go ahead, Sean.
Yep, that's exactly right. So pretty much any sort of infringement by government, but in this case, it's been so far police departments, because in New Jersey, it's the police departments that actually issue firearms ID card. That's just basically your permit to possess and purchase long guns, and then you have the pistol purchase permit, and then you have the carry permit. They all go through the police stations, and the law spells out how much time that they're allowed to take to issue each permit, but there's zero accountability. So, for example, a carry permit, the law might say 90 days, but there's jurisdictions that have gone beyond a year. One of our articles here was about the Wayne Police Department, and they were taking 9 months. And I forget if it was a carry permit or a pistol purchase permit, but either way, it's unacceptable and there's no excuse for it. So, and I should also mention, this was John Petrolino's brainchild.
Petrolino.
Yep.
Gabagoo Patriot. I love that.
Exactly. So we always reach out to the mayor, the chief of police, and any other relevant, the permitting officer, any other relevant entities, because we want to, our goal is not to smear any particular person or agency. We want to give them a chance to tell their side of the story, because every story does have two sides. In the two that we've done so far, nobody's responded. I do know that they've actually seen the articles, because as soon as I've emailed them links, they said, I know you guys didn't respond, but here's a link to the story. You could actually see somebody from the town that you just emailed is on the site. So in this case, in Wayne, they were taking 9 months to issue permits. So we reached out to everybody involved 2 or 3 times. Nobody responded. And so we went ahead and published the article. And then 2 days later, 2 business days later, the guy had his permit. So
nice.
Yep, and the same happened with the town of Belleville. It was a very similar situation. So far, I'd say we're going 2 for 2. The only thing I would say is that we wish more people would not be afraid to come and file an infringement report with us, because this is actual accountability. We are actually holding these police departments accountable. And evidence is that people are getting their permits 1 or 2 days after we publish the 2 pieces.
Good for you guys. That's awesome. And is it just New Jersey police departments? Because
We could probably find
Yeah,
some here
I gotta
locally
tell ya.
for you guys.
California.
We are
No,
open. We are open to anybody who's facing an infringement.
Yeah.
But
Love that.
right now, is it just New Jersey? You guys are just New Jersey with the police
Well,
departments, and you're looking to
those
expand?
are the people who've responded, right? But
Yeah.
here's the tools we use. We use publicly accessible information. So all of the contact information. We use the forms that the police departments provide to people. We submit OPA requests. If they don't want to provide them, we
you
use the
submit
law
what
to
requests?
Open Public Records Act request. So basically,
like
that's the New Jersey
RPRA.
version of
Oh.
FOIA or
Okay.
the California version. So we use every tool at our disposal to objectively track what's going on, and we're not limited to where we're sitting in order to do that. It doesn't matter where we're sitting, but if there's people out there who are experiencing infringements, we're more than happy to take it up.
So in New Jersey, there's specific date requirements, like the government has 60 days or 90 days to issue certain things, and that's like per the law. Is that how you guys are determining what's an actual infringement?
Right. Yeah, Sean
I
can
wish we
probably
had
speak to
that.
that more specifically.
Yeah, it's
I wish we
tough
had that
'cause
written in.
we don't have that in California. We don't have like a law that requires sheriff departments to only
that's
take a
wild.
certain number of days or anything like that. So I guess technically ours wouldn't be considered infringements, even though we find them to be very infringing.
They're infringe adjacent.
Yeah.
I mean, any delay is an infringement on your rights. Even 30 days, even a week, it's all an infringement.
Agreed. Okay, that was an awesome conversation about what you guys are doing at News 2A, and I really truly encourage everybody to check out News 2A. That was very, very cool. I think we could probably go on for another couple hours, so we're going to have you guys back on and talk even more about some of this, and maybe go into some more focused subjects and talk about some of the things you guys are working on. This is awesome. Big thank you to Petrolino for putting us in touch. Anything else you guys want to make sure that our audience knows about you, or anything else you want to talk about real quick?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you both for the conversation, for hosting us. News 2A started in New Jersey, but we're national, and we could keep a close eye on California because what happens in California usually spreads to the rest of the nation.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also find us on Twitter or X at Team News 2A. Or is it? I think
News 2A team.
News 2A Team. Sorry, News 2A Team. And we're on Facebook, Gab, Instagram, and Truth Social as well.
Nice. Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys
it,
so
gentlemen.
much.
Awesome job. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.